this is definitely something that we're going to have to ask for an investigation.
And now an 11 News Investigates exclusive. After 11 News Investigates uncovered and shared financial discrepancies and potential issues with state laws at one of the biggest nonprofits in Maryland with the Baltimore City Comptroller, he has now requested an official investigation.
Investigative reporter Tolly Taylor joins us now. And Tolly, this nonprofit does a lot of work with the city.
A year ago, a Baltimore small business owner told 11 News Investigates that Time Organization asked her to make a donation during a period where the organization was reevaluating her contract. As we looked into the nonprofit, which reports $30 million a year in revenue, the issues piled up. And after reviewing our findings, the Comptroller asked the Inspector General to launch an investigation. 11 News Investigates has spent the past year looking into Time Organization. The nonprofit has more than 550 employees and is a licensed mental health center, providing counseling and substance abuse treatment across Maryland, while also operating these two hotels that serve as shelters for those experiencing homelessness in partnership with the city of Baltimore.
So I think if you have nothing to hide, register with our office, report your contributions.
Federal Election Commission records show top Time Organization employees since 2020 have donated more than $1,000 to the Democratic National Committee and to congressional races in Virginia and South Carolina. Locally, campaign finance records during that same period show Time CEO and Chief Operating Officer donated a combined $13,500 in their personal capacities to Governor Wes Moore and Mayor Brandon Scott's campaigns. Because of the nonprofit's contracts with the city, 11 News Investigates went to the State Board of Elections Director of Candidacy and Campaign Finance. What disclosures do nonprofits and their officers have to make about campaign donations?
We would expect to see any political contributions reported in their disclosure reports.
In other words, Norfleet says nonprofits are required by law to first register with his office before making political donations and then submit disclosure reports every 6 months after that.
If they haven't registered with me, that would be a problem.
Norfleet confirms Time Organization is not registered with his office, but could only speak generally about nonprofits beyond that.
It's required by law, and it's the right thing to do. And again, it's your responsibility as a nonprofit or business in the state of Maryland.
As Norfleet explains, there's a $1,000 fine per report missed, and the penalty is doubled if the nonprofit isn't registered with his office to begin with, meaning Time Organization could be on the hook for a $20,000 fine. But Time Organization's problems don't end with Norfleet.
The first really big red flag that we noticed was this organization does not have audited financial statements.
Lori Styron is the CEO of Charity Watch, the only independent charity watchdog in the country, exposing nonprofit abuses and informing donors. Styron's referring to the audit required by Maryland state law, which says charities have to file if they receive more than $750,000 in 1 year from charitable contributions. In its most recent tax filings in 2023, Time Organization reported charitable contributions of nearly $9 million, but no audit.
Even if an audit can be somewhat expensive, these decisions are not optional.
Styron's second red flag: the Attorney General's website says that charities must first register with the Office of the Secretary of State. When 11 News Investigates asked the Secretary of State's office about Time Organization, the office responded, Time is not registered as of May 14th, 2025. Public documents show Time started the registration process with the Secretary of State in November, but never completed it. Maryland law requires charities to be registered before accepting a single donation.
For a state oversight office to not even have a record of a nonprofit being registered at all when it's known to be soliciting contributions from the public is extremely concerning.
But there's more. While Time reported receiving $8.8 million in charity for 2023, Time told the IRS that it spent $0 on fundraising.
No staff time expenses, no postage printing or mailing, no internet fees or running ads or, printing brochures.
You guessed it. This is red flag number 3 for Styron.
It's just, how does a nonprofit raise that much money without spending even 1 penny to do so? It's almost unheard of.
Then there's number 4. Time reported receiving 0 donations in tax filings before 2023. But we reviewed old versions of their website, finding a donate button has existed since at least May 2021. And finding social media posts seeking donations like this one in 2024, a golf tournament fundraiser costing $175 per player, with all tournament funds directly supporting, quote, our comprehensive programs, as well as other fundraising posts in 2023, 2022, and 2021. And then there's this. The tax filings state that Time CEO made more than $220,000 in 2018, $0 in salary from 2019 to 2022, and then more than $475,000 in 2023.
That causes us as a watchdog to question, are they receiving compensation some other way through some related legal entity that is obfuscating what they're actually getting?
On its website, Time Organization states more than 13,000 clients have received mental health related services, and more than 3,200 clients received substance use disorder services. When 11 News Investigates reached a high-level official with Time Organization on her cell phone, she hung up. Time did not respond to multiple other calls or emails seeking comment.
There's just really obvious red flags with this organization, not having an audit, claiming it has zero fundraising expenses.
In your position as Comptroller and as a member of the Board of Estimates, what's your reaction to hearing those things?
Well, those are definitely some very troubling allegations.
After the Baltimore City Comptroller's office made calls about some of what 11 News Investigates uncovered,
we're going to be referring this to the Office of the Inspector General for them to investigate this matter more fully.
Officials signaling Time Organization may have broken state laws, could face a $20,000 fine, and requesting an investigation by the Inspector General, one of Maryland's largest nonprofits, tasked with helping some of the most vulnerable people in the Baltimore area, failing to fully document what happens to the tens of millions of dollars it receives every year.
It's just a real recipe for disaster.
Documents show Time Organization has been submitting tax filings with the IRS dating back to 2016. For 11 News Investigates, I'm Tolly Taylor.